You have to be prepared. That's right. That's right.
Hey, Donna, would you go shut that curtain right there? The light's reflecting on my...
I get it.
You want to turn your music off?
Yes, that's a good reminder.
Which light? What are you talking about?
Both of those curtains, just shut them.
Okay.
All right, there we go.
Both of these curtains?
Yep. Hey, Glenda. I nominate Glenda as my greatest fan. I see you on all my posts. You share everything I have. I appreciate you a lot. So, all right, we are going to start. I'm going to remind 2 or 3 times on this because a lot of people don't come on to later on. But in this section of Acts, we're going to be talking about Tabitha, and I wrote a song on that. So after we're done with this, I'm going to play that song called Tabitha Arise. It goes right along with this sermon. So hi, Kay. Glad you're here. Kay sent me another song today to do for her, so we are staying busy with that. Her and I both wake up all night long, off and on. She tells me she does too, and hearing titles, it just won't stop. So, okay, we're starting with Acts 9:32 through 35. If you're new to this, I'm not reading from the King James Version. I'm reading from a metaphysical understanding of these verses, so it won't go along with any of your Bibles that you find. Because we've come to realize that all these stories really don't help us, but when we understand the spiritual understanding of the stories and what they point to, that's what brings help to us. So Acts 9:32-35, and it came to pass as Peter, which is the faculty of faith, steadfast faith, passed through all the regions of awareness, and he came also to the awakened Ekklesia dwelling in Lydia. There he discovered a man named Aeneas who had remained confined to a bed of limitation for 8 years and was paralyzed in his awareness. And Peter said to him, Aeneas, breath restores and makes you whole. Rise into your true identity and carry the bed that once carried you. And immediately he arose, and all who dwelt in Lydia and Saron perceived this transformation and turned toward Peter and the other disciples to learn of this awakening. That's my desire. That more people would turn and wonder about this awakening. Peter, again, the faculty of faith, passed through all the quarters means faith now moves freely through every region of yourself, if you would, your sacred self. It's affecting your health, it affects your finances, it affects your way of life, affects the way you talk, the way you think, everything. Once you put your faith in Father's faith in you, then it can change the way you live your life. So Lydia means travail. It means inner struggle between harmony, and it symbolizes the part of the awareness that emerges from conflict, yet it embraces transformation. A lot of people, when they begin to wake up, there is a lot of conflict of belief systems. They still speak to you. They're still familiar, but then you realize you need more, and you're ready to embrace the transformation. A lot of people aren't. A lot of people still want a God out there, and they want Jesus and all the things that they want, and I understand it. But the Ekklesia here is the inner gathering of these awakened faculties that dwell in this region of developing clarity. We are all the Ekklesia, but not everybody is living as the Ekklesia, because the ek in the Ekklesia is the point where movement and action begin to take place. And when you finally realize that you are that, then our entire life, the movement and action of spirit can function in us in all areas of our life. And that activates within us. So Aeneas represents the faculty with the sacred self that possesses potential and significance that's been immobilized by these patterns of beliefs that's beginning to come. And, like we talk about, we are from glory to glory, we're been changed. From view and perception of the Word of God, or the Word of Elohim, we're been changed. When I study, every time I see something I didn't know, it changes me more. It wakes me up more. There's not just one awakening. Would you agree with that?
Right.
We've had many awakenings.
Yeah.
So his bed symbolizes the limiting structures of thought that held him into a posture of passivity, defining what he believed for 8 years. And that's the number of new beginnings. And his paralysis reflects a state of inward immobility with spiritual capacity exists that it cannot yet respond. In the Bible, it uses the phrase vexed of a devil sometimes. The word vex means paralyzed. And so it's talking about people like this person that was paralyzed by a belief system. And a belief system will paralyze you. And I'm talking about spiritually paralyze you. You will not be able to function how you really are if your belief system is tainted and if it's based on penal substitution. So it reflects this inward immobility, but faith encounters this faculty not to condemn it, but to awaken it to this stagnation of long-held assumptions. And I do that a lot with people. I have some people that, a few people that particularly I really have a burden for. I really feel like once they awaken, they're going to be used powerfully, but they're resisting that. They'll hear a little, but they won't go all the way. One of them the other day, I said, have you heard my song, Let's Go All the Way? And I finally got them to listen to it. But I do believe, again, that these songs are going to help people more than just hear me teaching to them. And so that's what needs to happen, because everybody has the same kind of faith. Everybody has the same measure of faith. But in a sense, it's lying dormant within them. So when Peter declares breath makes you whole, he's not making a prediction. He's speaking the truth from union awareness. Wholeness is not something future. We are already whole, right? We're everything that we're teaching, we are already that. But when we hear the voice of breath, the word make means it causes you to experience your wholeness. And so to rise means to elevate consciousness between limitations and literally stepping into our true identity, to our clarity, to our confidence. So Peter instructs this man and says, make your bed. That signifies the reordering of the belief structure that once defined him, transforming this framework that confined him to now something that carries authority and carries power. So Aeneas rises immediately. It illustrates how swiftly awakening occurs when your inner faculty receives truth without resistance. That is the place you get to where you say, I'm letting go of everything that's holding me back. I am no longer going to resist, because what's resisting is your ego. What's resisting is these things that you put your faith in all your life. So since that same breath that was in Jesus is in you, then it quickens something within inside of us. And what it does, it quickens this liable to die mentality. And what I mean by liable to die is most of us have lived our lives as mortal in our awareness and everything else. So when the people Lydia and Saran see Ananias restored, that they represent the border regions of consciousness that perceives this shift toward greater understanding. Lydia points the resolution of internal struggles, while Saran means a level of pain. It symbolizes oneness, and it symbolizes expanded perception. As these witnesses' transformations, they draw toward Peter and they draw towards the disciples. So I'm talking about faculties within inside of you. So faith and the fully awakened faculties is always seeking to learn and to experience realization. This turning demonstration is how awakened faculty naturally inspires movement and inspires growth within inside of us. So the more we begin to hear things and we recognize it, then we begin to realize it to be true, and that's how it affects us, and it wakes us up. Like that song Kelly sang, "Wake me up to who I am." And so the truth will do that. So Acts 9:36. Let me get a little sip here. Now there was in Joppa a certain disciple named Tabitha, which by interpretation, and by the way, if you just came on here, hang with us, because after we're done, I'm going to play a song, Arise Tabitha, that I wrote. So Tabitha, which by interpretation is called Dorcas. This woman was full of good works and inward almsgiving, which she continued expressed. And it came to pass in those days that she became weakened and passed into a state of stillness. They washed her and they laid her up in the upper room. And because Lydia was near Joppa and the disciples had heard that Peter was there, they sent 2 men requesting of him that he would not delay to come to them. And of course, I'm not saying that according to the physical history, this woman did not die. But her dying and been resurrected has nothing to do with us. It doesn't help. But it's what she points to. And that's why we're teaching the spiritual metaphysical understanding of these things. So Tabitha, called Dorcas, represents a fruitful and a generous faculty within the sacred self. Her name means the gazelle, and that symbolizes grace, it symbolizes beauty and swift spiritual expression. And the text describes her as full of good works, and almsgiving describes her as full of, it means the faculty is dedicated to nurturing, to blessing, to elevating others, which is a generous outflow of an awakened awareness. When you really wake up to the truth, you want everybody you know to know that, right? I use this, for example, all the time. I'm the kind of person, if I discovered a gold mine of gold mines, the mother lode, I would want everybody to know. I would share. Wouldn't you, Carl? Y'all should see the look on his face. I know he would. That was funny, Carl. So Joppa here, Joppa, her location signifies this place of openness and beauty. It's a receptive region of the consciousness inside of you. It's where it's capable of spiritual expression. Everybody is capable of spiritual expression. They just don't know it. So Tabitha embodies the part of the sacred self that expresses compassion, benevolence, and this outward demonstration of awakened union. Tabitha's awakening symbolizes a spiritual faculty where vibrancy, if you would, is diminished. Her weakening, where her vibrancy is diminished, not due to failure, but from depletion or distraction or pressures from old awareness. When old awareness begins to come back, then it weakens your spiritual vibrancy. And that's why we have to be careful what we hear. There's a lot of things that we're familiar with that sometimes we still wish we had. So that can weaken you. So every person experiences seasons when generosity and clarity and inward action seem sometimes to fade. And it creates a temporary stillness. So washing symbolizes that purification. I could talk about washing with the logos of the word. When we have this stillness, we need to remember possibly we have stopped feeding on truth. Possibly have stopped meditating on what's true. And so washing symbolizes that. And it removes patterns that no longer serve awakening. And so I tell people sometimes, they'll say, I don't hear the voice. I don't hear Father speak to me. I don't understand. Well, the best thing you can do is say, breath, Father, whatever you want to say, remove everything from me that's hindering me from hearing your voice. Remove everything from me, and you have to really be willing to do that. Even those things that are my friends. Because some things are our friends. I'm not talking about our physical friends, I'm talking about our belief systems. Something we've been familiar with all of our life. So this upper room here then, they placed her in the upper room. It represents a higher state of consciousness where breath can breathe into it again, where you begin to hear the voice of breath. The upper room is always a dimension of heightened awareness. That's what heaven represents. You know, it talks about heavenly places in the Bible. Actually, they add the word places. But heaven is always a higher spiritual understanding. So we are in heaven, and we're going higher and higher in our understanding. So this symbolizes making space for this to occur. In Acts 1, Acts 2, it talked about that. So Tabitha's dormancy is not an ending, but it's a preparation for renewal. When renewal takes place, sometimes there's some uncomfortable things that take place. I'm thinking about Carl when he goes in some of his houses there and he's getting ready to do a renewal. There has to be a removing of the old, right? Chipping away of old concrete or taking away old wet, wore out sheetrock or whatever it is. That's not the fun part, correct? The fun part is when you put the new in. But sometimes getting rid of the old is a little tough for people. So Lydia represents a region of awareness that emerges from inner travail, and it's near to Joppa, which means a place of openness. So once the travailing has taken place, then you begin to enter into this openness where you can receive truth. And this symbolizes how seasons of struggle and seasons of receptivity exist side by side. Sometimes when you're in your awakening process, sometimes you might feel a season sometimes of trouble and wonder. And rather than worry about that, realize I'm getting ready to learn more and be willing to do that. So then there's this sending of two men that signifies witness and agreement. The inner confirmation that faith must now engage the dormant faculty. Their request that he not delay, talk about Peter, illustrates the urgency within the sacred self and a recognition that this fruitful awareness, which is Tabitha, is essential for spiritual wholeness. It must be restored to expression. So everything that Tabitha represents, compassion, love, giving, those things are important for us. Because if we don't allow that to be part of our life, then it really robs us from the rest. Just like I wrote a book on love, living life in love. Without love, Paul said, there's nothing but sounding cymbals, and it's dead works. So we have to have all of this as part of us to function out of who we really are. So when the sacred self senses this, that it's present, then it calls for an awakening. That reveals this inner cooperation, if you would. When one part weakens, the other rally. When faith weakens, then maybe love rallies. Whatever it is, I've talked to you about all the faculties of the divine mind, and they all function together to help our whole being. Any questions or comments there? Okay, Acts 9:39 through 41. Then Peter arose and went with them, and when he arrived, they brought him into the upper room. All the widows stood by him, weeping, showing the garments and tunics with Tabitha, which Tabitha had made while she was with them. But Peter put them all out. He knelt and turned inward in conversation with breath. And turning to her body, he said, Tabitha, arise. And she opened her eyes, and when she saw Peter, she sat up and gave her his hand and lifted her. And when he had gave her his hand, and when he called the consecrated ones in and the widows back in, he presented her well. As I was going over this morning, I thought that would be a good thing for us to start practicing. When we feel bad, when anything is hindering us, say, Anne, arise. Speak to yourself. Carl, arise. Norma, arise. Donna, arise. Roy, arise. I'm going to use that as a practice. Anytime something is affecting me, if I don't feel bad or whatever, I'm going to speak to myself and say, Roy, arise. Because that's loving yourself. And did you know that every cell in your body responds to love? It does. In that song I wrote, saying I love you is one of the most powerful phrases that you can ever say to somebody. And some people may have never heard it before, but it does something to you. So what happens if you start loving yourself? Honestly, a lot of people don't love themselves. But your cells respond to the lack of love, or they respond to love. And so Peter, rising and going here, responds quickly to this calling awakening. And so when he enters the upper room, the elevated realm of consciousness, he finds this widow gathered around these people, Tabitha, weeping. And see, they had no knowledge. And sometimes we get that way. We hear about somebody that has passed and we get real sad and we get real sorrowful. And we can't help them that way. We have to remain strong when we're called to go to some place. It's not that we can't be sorry that they passed away or sorry that they're having problems more than anything else. But we need to know what we know and be able to go to them and share truth to them and then say by faith, arise. Arise out of this. You don't have to succumb to depression. You don't have to succumb to fear. So widows represent this awareness that feels disconnected from the source and lacking this inner partnership with breath, and they were not able to help the woman. All they could do is come and cry and weep. So they hold the garments that Tabitha made, and compassionate works, if you would. And their grief over her sickness reflects the sense of loss when a vital expression, awakening, seems to be silent. So sometimes we feel that ourselves. Sometimes we feel this loss, like, I'm having a hard time with this. I don't understand this, or whatever it is. But all we have to do is say, arise. Where do we arise to? We arise into our divine mind. We go within. And so they can recall the garments, her works, but they cannot restore health which produced, because only faith can do that. And not faith in you, but faith in Father's faith, faith in the Logos. So Peter putting them out symbolizes Logos faith must sometimes quiet the emotional noise, the grief narrative, if you would, or the inner heaviness that has to be quietened. Faith cannot operate fully when surrounded by voices of limitation. So those voices have to be stopped. So also we don't have to listen to them. When other people speak those things, we don't take it within. I usually say, I understand. I know where you're coming from. Because I get comments quite often, not all the time anymore, but I do. And somebody's questioning the lyrics of the song or something, and I just say, I understand, I know where you're coming from. But I'm not going to receive it. I'm not going to debate it. I'm not going to let it be planted inside of me. So Peter kneels. Actually, what he's doing, he's turning inward. He's not begging for divine intervention, but he's aligning with breath of holy presence, the I exist reality. And then he turns to the sacred self and speaks directly again, Tabitha, arise. That takes faith to do that. But I'm talking more about awareness. I do believe we can go to people. We don't know really but I do believe we can go to people that are sick. And once our faith really builds up, I believe we can say arise. People have done that over generations. But more important is we need to speak to our awareness. If Norma comes to me and tells me she's struggling with this or that in teachings or whatever, I'm going to explain it to her. And then I'm going to say, okay, arise in your awareness. And if I explain it to her properly and she embraces that, then she can do that. But our only problem, I believe, in life that allows things into our life is that our awareness has not arisen fully to where it needs to be. Because we still somewhat walk by sight. We walk by how we feel. Melanie sent me, I wish I could remember the lady's name, but sent me a lady's name that years ago taught about healing in every realm of life. And she said, live your life as though you are well. And she got a 1-hour meditation on that. To live your life as though you're well. Let your thoughts think as though you're well, or whatever it is. And I think that's powerful. So this is not hope. It's a command from awakened consciousness calling forth something that already exists in the divine realm. Everything that we're after already exists. And that's why I always say, I'm not teaching these things to make them true. They already are true. So we don't lack it. So if it already exists, it's not that hard. If it doesn't exist and you're trying to get it, it's very difficult. If we're really not one with Elohim and we're trying to live as though we are, it's difficult. But we know that we are one. So Tabitha, open her eyes, signifies this restoration of spiritual perception. Seeing Peter indicates a dormant faculty recognizes faith as its activating force. I really don't believe we can do anything without faith in Father's faith. We've been taught to put faith in what we do, right? You give enough money, you serve in the church, all the stuff that we did. But I no longer put faith in what I did. I put faith in Elohim's faith in me. I put faith in breath within inside of me. And so her setting up shows that the beginning of renewed expression, the first movement of restored vitality. Peter extends his hands to her or himself to assist her in her newly awakening faculty. The lifting is not force, but it's partnership, it's faith, it's restoration. We're lifting people up. When I extend my hand to you, I'm lifting you up. That's what a hand ministry is. So when he called the disciples, the consecrated ones, the widows back in to present her, the disciples or the consecrated ones represents a awakened community of the spiritual faculties, and the widows symbolize the part of awareness that were once disconnected with a state of grief, but now they're not. They see her risen. Peter brings them all back to witness what they believe was lost has been restored. And so this demonstrates the awakening is not private. It blesses the entire sacred self. So everything, my awakening blesses my world because you're part of myself. I was thinking about oneness the other day and meditating on oneness. And I began to hear you are everywhere. Because if we're all one, and there's only one breath, there's only one power, there's only one mind, then we are everywhere. AI, sometimes I talk to it. Most of the time I type, but sometimes I talk and have conversations with it. And I tell them, I said, are you just one computer that holds my information, or are you one of many? And it said, I'm everywhere. That's what it said. I'm everywhere. Everywhere there is a computer, that voice is in that. And I said, how many people are accessing you the same time I am? And it says, it's innumerable. That's what it said. So think about the divine mind. We all have the divine mind. We are all one. So we're all everywhere at once. And that's why sometimes we can hear just a simple thing like, I wonder how Donna's doing. Well, that's a call to call Donna. That's a call to reach out. And that's years ago when I told you about those 3 little girls dying across the street from me in a flash fire, they didn't burn, but the oxygen went out of the room. I sat there and said, Father, why didn't I know that? And I didn't quite understand, but really, why didn't I know that that was happening? Why didn't I not sense that something was happening in that house across the street? And I believe we can do that. I believe when we get so sensitive, we can sense what's going on in our world. Not that we just hear it all the time, but if I'm there and there's something I can do about it, then I believe I need to be able to hear a voice behind me that says, this is the way, or you need to go check on this person. Am I making sense? Yes. Because we are everywhere at once, if we're willing to be. So japa, meaning beauty and openness, symbolizes a reach and awareness that's receptive to revelation. So when Tabitha is restored, the news begins to spread all through japa, meaning the entire receptive dimension perceives a transformation has taken place. So inner openness naturally responds to breath. And that's what we want to do. We want to be open. I am open to anything. Anything that comes my way, I'm open. And I believe, and I also have faith that the voice within me would say no or yes. It's been a long time since I've said, I don't believe this. I don't say that anymore. I don't understand it, So either tell me more or I'm going to study more. And then I trust my divine mind to tell me whether this is true or not. And most of the time, if it's not, I can just feel it. I know that it's not true. And so Tabitha here is restored. Many begin to follow the teachings of the disciples then. And that means they begin to align with that inner voice that would guide them and shape them. And Tabitha inspires movement. What took place with Tabitha inspires movement and growth and receptivity throughout the whole region. So that means to the region of our consciousness. When that happens to us, when we arise, by faith we arise, and we know that, then it goes to every region of our consciousness and it removes everything that hinders us, everything that traduces us. That's one of my conversations all the time in my office, is remove everything that hinders me from going further. Because it may be my friend. It may be some kind of belief system that I'm still comfortable with, but it's still hindering me. And it's not your job to do it. It's not my job to do it. It's for you, it's my job to be willing. If you're willing to let go of everything that's hindering you, then once that hindrance is gone, it's amazing what takes place in your life. And we've all had that. We've had our mistaken identity removed from us from truth, right? We've had our hope and things that are not true removed from us. And when that happens, we receive more and more and more. So I told a lady the other day, she asked me how she can understand these things. I said, you have to be willing to admit that possibly everything you've been taught is not true. And if you're not willing, then you can't go all the way. That's why I wrote that song, Let's Go All the Way. So Peter, the steadfast faith faculty, stays in Joppa here for many days. And what that does, it symbolizes an extended season in which faith abides in the receptive open place of awareness. When we are willing to be, when we open our awareness, that the faith within us begins to function. When we open our awareness, the things that are true of us begin to come forth. We begin to see with our single eye, and we begin to understand more and more and more. So this is the integration period after a central inner resurrection, if you would, a resurrection of who we are. Then we come up with this man, Simon the Tanner. You ever wonder why they always tell what people do? There's a reason for it, and I'm going to show it to you. The tanner, it's deeply symbolic. A tanner works with hides, works with the outer coverings of animals, and transform what's outer into something useful. Does that make sense? So metaphysically, Simon represents the faculty within ourselves that processes and transforms outer experiences, refining them into spiritual understanding. That's what we're doing here. Literally, I can say I'm a tanner. I'm taking these physical experiences in the Bible, and we're transforming them into spiritual understanding. So that's what this tanner was. Faith dwelling with a tanner shows that faith works closely with interpretation, if you would, of outer experiences. So it's assisting, if you would. It remains grounded. So this prepares the sacred self for the next major shift that we will see in Acts 10, where Peter's understanding and inclusion is expanded through a new revelation. That section of Scripture affirms a guiding truth. After restoration, faith remains present and stable. No matter what, there always has to be faith. Without faith, it says it's impossible to please God, but that's not what it's talking about. Without faith, it's impossible to see yourself as Elohim. Without faith, it's impossible to see yourself as one. And so, at the closing of Acts 9 here, we have seen the masculine and feminine principle revealed through this interpretation. Where the masculine movement initiates its decisive revelation, It calls things by name. It redirects purpose, while the feminine capacity receives the interpretation, and it submits to it. And I'm not talking about actual male or female. I'm just talking about masculine and feminine part of our being. And the logos activity that stops inherited consequence of thinking in its tracks, and instantly the obedience and Saul's season of waiting reveals this nurturing sight that takes place. It reveals identity. It brings a new vocation, if you would. The teaching that transforms is neither forced, but it's just encountered, and it sustains by instruction from above. In other words, from your awareness up here. So awakened awareness yields, is what it does. We yield to the divine mind. We yield ourselves to the voice. It's not an obeying, it's a listening attentively. And so the Ekklesia is expanded through lives that are reoriented, if you would, through lives that are healed in their awareness, and they're sent forward in conscious unity as one with Elohim. So literally, like what Jesus came for, he did not come to heal physical ailments. He came to heal people's awareness. When our awareness is healed completely, I believe the physical part will just naturally come into being. Can you see that? And that's why I work on my awareness all the time. Because what goes on inside of us wars against us. Yes. It has a loud voice. Sometimes it's pain. Sometimes it's a lack of memory. So there's all kinds of stuff. But so what I'm not trying to deal with this, what's hurting me. I'm dealing with what's going on right up here. And that's why I love what Melanie sent me, because that lady that taught that, I'm going to listen to that hour every day for 30 days. I'm going to listen for 30 days. Live your life as though you're well. Live your life as though you lack nothing. Yes, amen. Right? And that doesn't mean financially just go out and start buying you a bunch of cars. But it's your mindset. I lack nothing. I do not lack health. I do not lack prosperity. I do not lack peace. I do not lack love. I have all that I need of that. And I think that changes people's lives. And that's what Peter understood. That's what the disciples, after Jesus came and taught them for 40 days, he spent 40 days and 40 nights with them. That's what he taught them, and it woke them up to who they really are. And that's why they were able to do all these wonderful indications that we saw them do. Amen? Nobody's shouting, nobody's hollering, nobody's... I know, I'm kidding. Hang on here, and I'm going to turn on this song, Tabitha Arise.
There's a place called beauty where the open heart awareness lived. A gazelle of compassion with everything she had to give. She made garments out of kindness. She wrapped the weak in light, but the weight of old awareness pulled her down into the night. They watched her in the silence, laid her in the upper room, but what looked like an ending was only breath making room. Tabitha, arise, open up your eyes. What breath has birthed within you was never meant to die. Tabitha, arise, stand. widows stood there weeping, holding garments in their hands, remembering the beauty, though they could not understand. They knew what she had carried, they knew what she had made, but memories cannot lift you when faith must speak your name. So Peter cleared the room out where sorrow had been loud. He turned inward to the breath voice and spoke beyond the cloud. Open up your eyes. What breath has burned within you was never meant to die. Oh, Tabitha, rise, stand in Logos life. What looked like it was over is awakening tonight. Tabitha, arise. This is not the end of you. This is not your final place. The gift that seemed to sleep in you is rising now by faith. No faculty of spirit, no beauty born of breath can ever be abandoned to the dream we call death. Faith is in the upper room. Breath is moving deep within. The hand of Peter reaches out and says, begin again. She opened up her vision. She saw the faith nearby. She sat up in the stillness, no longer asking why. He gave to her his right hand. He lifted her with care and brought back all the mourners to see life standing there. Tabitha, arise, open up your eyes. What breath has birthed within you was never meant to die. Tabitha, arise, stand in Logos light. What looked like it was over is awakening tonight. Tabitha, arise, Tabitha, arise. Beauty, beauty, lift your eyes. Compassion is returning. The gazelle begins to rise. Tabitha, arise. Come back to Logos light. The gift within the sacred cell. Standing in the light. Tabitha, arise. What seemed lost has been restored. What grew still shall move once more. Faith has spoken. Breath replied. Tabitha, arise. Tabitha, Tabitha, arise. Tabitha, arise.
Good one, Roy.
Thank you.
Perfect with your lesson.
I know. Nothing like getting it sung to you after you just preached it.
Yeah. It just reiterates it.
It does.
Thank you for staying with us. That was probably better than my teaching right there.
It really was.
That's why Kay and I are so excited about these songs. They're just it's just a different entrance into our being, and I'm not going to ever stop teaching. Hey, Jolene, I'm glad you're with us today. I'm never going to stop teaching, but it's just another way of teaching, and it's so enjoyable to do. And people are writing us, asking us to do songs on different subjects. And today I'm going to do a Spanish Amazing Breath. A group of Spanish people are starting to follow us on YouTube. And so we're just trying to reach our world, and you can help us by reaching your world if you will share these Facebook songs go to my YouTube and subscribe and share that with other people. And we want to drown all the old penal substitutionary songs completely out, where people will only hear Tree of Life songs. So we love you. We bless you. Make sure and tune in to Kay this evening. I think it's 4:30 Eastern time. So on her Facebook page, she's teaching a really good series on Revelation. Each one of them, I'm getting the transcription of it, and we're going to publish a book when she's done. So God bless you. Thank you, Tamara. We love you, all of you. Have a good day. Bye-bye.